Welcome to another episode from the Watch Advocate. Today we've got a really fun episode for you. It is going to be a little bit interesting. If you've seen the title, it's going to be more along the lines of what your watch won't do for you. But before we break into it, feel free to please subscribe if you like watch content and you just like to hear me specifically right now, just kind of chatting about it like a fireside chat. Feel free to click any of the links below, head to the website, kind of see my favorite picks. They are subjective. They are what I enjoy. If you pick anything up from Amazon there, the channel does get a little kickback, and that helps. So let's break into it. There's a lot that happened this week, and I never thought I'd start off with like a news section, but the new G-Shock all steel launched. And it is a fantastic watch. I was one of the first to pick one of those up. No, I didn't get one before they launched, but I'm pretty sure I was the fastest to get it shipped to the house. I absolutely love this watch. I went with the Stealth All Gray. I think technically they said it was going to be black, but it's very gray. And I put up a little, on the YouTube channel side, I put up a little video I just had to just throw out the phone, take a quick shot of what it was compared to some of the other Casioks that are out there. But the new G-Shock Casiok All Steel is really amazing. Great to wear. I've been wearing it all week long. I just can't take this thing off. It's super comfortable. I like the extra weight that goes with it, and I really do like the bracelet versus kind of the rubber strap. So really, really cool watch. I think everybody should pick them up. I know they're kind of sold out right now, so good luck. But if you can find one, do it. It's absolutely fantastic. Another fun watch that I have been watching for a long time is from Squale, and it is back in stock. The Squale Matic 600. This is a beast, a chunky boy, and it is gorgeous. It just has such a cool blue and white bezel, and Squale has an interesting following. I think they're pretty good for the money. I can't call them a micro brand. I mean, they've been around and they do the cases for forever from dive watches, so it might be like nearly the original dive watch, but this one's big. If you like it, I think it looks gorgeous, but don't be fooled. It's not the size of their average, average case size for them. It's a 44 case size, 16 thick, 51 lug to lug. That is my max size, kind of for my 7-inch wrist. So I know I'm hoping, it'll be fantastic for me. But anyway, that is kind of like the quick news of what happened this week. I'm sure some other crazy things came out, but those are the two watches that really hit my list, and it was great to see them again. So yes, the Squale Matic 600 is back at Long Island Watch. I think they are the official Squale dealer for the United States, and they've been gone for a long time. So if you think that's the one for you, go for it. It's time. The main topic today is kind of going to be your watch won't make an impact on your career in the business world. I think that's really what it comes down to. And it was the idea that having a luxury watch is worth making the purchase because it'll help move my career up. And from my experience, I have never had a partnership come through. I have never had a deal made because of the watch that was on the other person's wrist or the other general counsel's wrist. It just does not happen. I do, as a watch guy, I think it matters to me what's on my wrist, but in reality, nobody really cares. And I've seen this over the long haul in the business world, and even in, I guess I don't want to break into careers or anything, but in other major areas where you think what suit and shoes and watch you have on really matter, it really doesn't. I'm just not. I love watches. I'm happy to chat about them with somebody, but in reality, especially now, you hop on a Zoom call, I like to show what I have. It shows a little bit about who you are, but it does not make a difference. Anytime I've ever chatted with the CEO, I do not care whether he has a Rolex on or whether he's wearing a Timex or has nothing on his wrist. That does not matter to me. If a deal can be struck, a partnership can be made, I'm more along the lines of first, does it work for our companies? And second, do I like you as a person? And are you a decent individual, group of individuals? If so, great. If not, red flag. I've never put up a red flag because someone had a Timex on their wrist or someone had nothing on their wrist or a Rolex. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Your Rolex, your Omega, your AP, your Patek Philippe, One, that'll be a great conversation later on that we can have, but it really just, it's never made an impact on deals being made in my experience. Now, I think that's because times have changed a little bit. Back in the day, I think it was everything what was on your wrist. I think everything that what you looked like, your dress. There's a huge shift in what I guess class, pretending to be rich and well off means, and that is now that you can dress down. And the more you can dress down, the more people respect what you do in this world for the most part, unless you're kind of the old geezer in the room. But even they kind of see that, okay, this guy does what he does and he's wearing flip flops right now. What the heck? That's just kind of where it is. And you can go back to the 60s and you have somebody that made their heyday, 60s, 70s, 80s, even the 90s, is totally different. No, you had to have that fancy watch on. I think you had to be wearing a top of the line suit. And if you didn't have it, you were poor. And if you were poor, you had no respect in the community that you're in the business world. Or nowadays it's a complete swap. The people that really care are your low end and your high end salesmen, and they're salesmen. And let's be honest, nobody cares. That's gonna piss a lot of people off. The truth is that nobody cares if you're just in sales. We all know that doesn't matter anyway. And that's kind of what I ran into is all the sales individuals are the only ones that care whether they have a Rolex on their wrist, they AP, a Patek. And because they're just trying to show that they're successful at what they do in sales and for the company. And the truth is the more I see that, the more I almost call BS on it. I'm still more along of interested in the sales guy that does not care because he is so successful. That is the massive sweeping change in the world that we're in now. And unless you're in a literal top of the line corporate organization, that it does not matter. Now, what can it do like in office? Now, I think that's where it has more of an effect of what you're actually wearing. And for the most part, it's the fact that you can afford whatever you're wearing. And I think that's the bigger deal. And it makes an impact on who's around you. I think some of that is positive and some of that is negative. Yet again, if you can afford whatever you can afford and people know that, I think they respect you more for wearing even a lower end watch than going in and wearing something crazy expensive. I kind of do. It's a new world, and don't let the YouTube channels of these really, really, really supposedly high-end rich people say there's nothing that matters except what's on your wrist, because it's the only thing people can judge you by of how rich you are now, because you can't take your car with you, you can't take your house with you. Don't fall into that trap. It really is a trap, and it's never shown to make a difference in my life. And it's not just in the business world, it's in other super high-end areas where you have to supposedly be looking good. And I dressed down for those, and I think I got way more respect for it than anybody that showed up in their Armani suit with a Patek on. It really made a difference. People were like, who is this guy that can afford to do this? It's a big difference. It's a huge difference, and I think it just has more of an impact now. And I know the lie that a lot of watch people that love watches tell. They're like, hey, if I get that Rolex, if I get that Omega, people are going to notice. And they're going to be like, this guy's on it, man. He's making money. He's doing deals. Like, that's the lie we tell ourselves. But on the other end, especially if they are not a watch person, they do not care. They do not care at all. They won't even notice. They won't recognize it. It's just like if you're into shoes, you will notice shoes instantly, but you'll be the only one, and that other person may be dominant at what they do and have more money to blow than you could ever imagine, and they show up with some New Balances on looking like pops. That's just the world that we're in. So because you're into something and because you value it does not mean other people do. And I will really stress this. I feel like 90% of people, probably higher than that, don't know watches at all. They know what Rolex is, and in their mind, okay, they're the best. In reality, they're a lower end luxury brand. They're barely luxury. They should be more of just like a premium brand, kind of like Omega. And Omega, I mean, I'll still call it luxury. There's nothing cheap about dropping $5 to $10K on a watch because it's just something you don't need. It's completely a luxury purchase. But in the world of like true luxury, unless it's a 30 or 50K watch, you're not really making a statement to anyone, in my opinion, because anybody can go and finance a $5,000 watch, $10,000 watch, or throw it on a credit card like an idiot, and then walk around with it. And I think that's kind of the difference now. Is that okay? If you really do want to impress, then drop a 50 to 80K on a watch. Okay, now someone knows you're in the next tier, and that now you're just so far above it doesn't matter. But if you're not there, you can't really fake it. And that's really what I'm getting at. Isn't even the watch people know that, okay, great, you've got an Omega Seamaster, fantastic. It looks good. It's a killer looking watch. Great specs. It's a spec monster for the price, but it doesn't really say anything about you because anybody can go and pick one up. And I mean it. Everybody's got a credit card, throw it on there and look like it. And okay, make that a 10K Rolex now because they're just hard to get. The gray market's really stupid. But it just doesn't make an impact. And I really want to say that not to throw people off from getting those watches, because I love so many of these. I think they're great. I think they're fantastic. I want a bunch of really cool looking Grail watches. But the fact is that I know it will not help my career. It will not put more money in my bank account if I get it, or if I convince myself that I need this because people are looking in the office and that's what I have to have. No, I don't really think so. It has more impact in office than it does out office, I think, in reality. And in office stuff, I honestly just don't care about that much. If anything, you can kind of hurt the people that work under you if you, especially if, let's say, you're in a rough patch. How does it look if you come in with your brand new, Rolex sub that you really love, and somebody that, because you probably talk about watches more than other people, they notice it and they're like, dude, when did you get a new Rolex sub? Aren't things a little tough around here? It hurts the people under you when you flex to them. And I think can be, it can be good, can be show us a shine of strength or positivity in the company, but sometimes people just know things, and it's more of a harm than a good. So take that with a grain of salt. That really does matter in the culture that you're in. And some cultures, in business cultures, it essentially some it does matter, and some it just really doesn't. And where I'm at, nobody cares. It's not going to make a difference what you walk in with. If someone going to notice, maybe more negative than positive sometimes. You just have to really be careful about that. It's not going to make you more deals. Will it move you up in the company? Maybe. It'll also just let people know, okay, this guy just blew 5 to 10K on something, and now everybody knows it. Now, that is positive in some cases. Great. You're crushing it. You're doing well. But it's not going to make the biggest impact that you really think that you really think it will. No one's going to make a decision based on you because of the watch that you're wearing. So take that to heart. Take it with a grain of salt. I've just wanted to throw that out there because I know it's one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves as watch lovers, that we justify what we're doing because this will be better. So, and don't flex on your underlings, I think, in bad times. It is 2022. We are going through a true recession. It's probably going to be a depression here. It is bad times, and from where I see, truly, the market is dropped 30%, and I mean that from almost every business that's around. I'm not gonna say what I do. I'm just gonna say the market's dropped 30% all around for the most part, and companies are hurting absolutely everywhere. And I know I'm not giving financial advice in what way, shape, or form, or legal advice in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying this is what I've seen around. You can watch the news. And if you are rolling around in your brand new watch and flexing to everybody when your company's down and people's salaries are struggling, they're not getting bumps, they're not getting the commission that they wanted, that's where I feel like it does hurt you more now than it can help you by just dropping something on a cool watch and wearing it to work. Wear it on the weekend, do that on your own time. Enjoy it during the evenings when you're going out. That's when it's really for too. Don't just crush the souls of people around you. If your business is booming, great, but be aware. Be aware of the impact that it can have on others around you. I think it can be more of a negative than a positive. Right now, A few years, absolutely, that may swap. People's perceptions change as things change around them. This is just the United States in 2022. And it is what it is. It's not a perfect time and a place that we're living in. So that's really what I wanted to hit on today. It's been something that's been rolling around my mind, just rolling around just kind of the office in general, and what I've seen and asked some people about. Hey, when you picked up your Rolex, did it change anything in your career? Did you drop any more deals? Did people really notice? And no. No, the answer is no. The only people that notice are salespeople selling to other salespeople and just go in their Armani suits trying to just make each other feel good about what their crazy expensive purchase is. So, yes, take that with a grain of salt, and the crazy slippers or tiger slippers that you wear around. It can have an impact on others in more negative ways than not. I'm just thinking of some of the crazy things I've seen out there, and it's kind of hilarious. But anyway, that's one of the biggest fallacies that I've seen. Don't fall into the trap. Buy a watch because you love that watch. I do not care what the price of it is, and I just say, be financially smart with your decision. Don't screw yourself over or your family over in the long run just to wear something that you think may or may not help your career. Do it because you love it, because you can, because you really enjoy that. And don't let some sort of fake career move influence you there. It's not really going to make a difference in the long run, I do not think. There are some very small caveats and small careers that, yes, not small careers, I just mean kind of small niches in different careers where what you wear is everything. But that is not the vast majority of where we are, just in general as a society. And I just don't want to see any more people spend absorbent amounts of money thinking it will help them. And that doesn't mean crazy amounts. I'm not talking about just that one person that buys a Rolex. No, depending where you are, that massive purchase may be the Squale. I mean, it may be the Squale-Matic 600. That may be way too much. You may think, oh, people will notice. This will make a big difference. And the truth is, no, it's most likely not. So this has nothing to do with price. It has nothing to do with that whatsoever. I mean, a luxury purchase for an individual can be $100. That can be a massive luxury purchase for them. Now, are they going to get a luxury watch, so to speak? No, but it's a luxury purchase for them, depending on where you're at. Same thing with 1,000. Move that up to 5. Move it up to 10. It does not really matter in those areas. I'm just saying that even if it is a luxury purchase and you are now reaching the luxury watch area, I'd say in reality, just if you're going to put a price tag on it, it's probably 10K or above, because that's moving probably out of the average person's, I don't know. I think most people really put a real budget on there. I will never spend more than a month's salary on there. So if it's a $10,000 watch, you're doing pretty decent as far as your month's salary, and that's beyond the average person in America by far right now. So yeah, I'll say that's a true luxury purchase for most people. But in reality, you're not gonna make a difference in my mind unless that's a 50 or 100K watch. Now I know that you have a crazy amount of money to spare, and you didn't just throw that on a credit card. So that's kind of where I see things now. That's where I truly consider luxury, is just exorbitant money, something that's very rare, and something that's definitely not just a regular Rolex. I trust me. I Rolex Explorer 2. I still think it's gorgeous. I love the Daytona. Panda Daytona is just beautiful in my mind, but even though they're just ridiculously overpriced for what they are, in my opinion, and I barely even consider those a luxury. They are because, the market's crazy. Luckily, the market is kind of crashing a little bit, and so are the prices on some of those top watches, and I feel bad for all the flippers out there at that bottom top dollar, just trying to make a little bit off of them, and now they're gonna lose big. So my heart goes out to the flippers who jumped into the game too late. It is what it is. It's kind of rough, but just prepare yourself. I guess that's all I can say. Anyway, kind of moved off to a tangent there. I think we're going to stop this one a little bit early. So, yeah, subscribe, hang around for the next podcast. It's going to be really fun. Check out the website. If you want to buy anything off those links, it's great. It does help out the channel. I appreciate it. And we can get some more more fun content happening in here. So thank you so much for hanging around today. I will see you next week. Welcome. Glad to have you here on the first episode from The Watch Advocate. Today is going to be really fun. With this being the first episode, it's going to be exciting to jump into really just talking about watches. This is a channel that I got excited about when because one, I like watches. I think it's a good time, and I love a little bit being nerdy about them, to be honest. Watching way too much YouTube and listening to podcasts on them. When you hit that spot, you realize, wow, I'm in this. You're in it for real. And what I realized was there's a lot of great content out there. Some fantastic content makers, especially in the review world, that are just really bringing professional reviews, but they're also bringing them mostly from a dealer perspective. And that dealer perspective, I totally understand. I love the business world. That's where I come from. It's my background. And I'm okay seeing all those reviews and all those things out there, but I realize that most of them are from a sales perspective. And for me, I get it. That's kind of what I'm interested in. I want to see what things are doing and why people are pushing what. But I think there's a lot of just content out there on products and not a lot of content out there on just people sitting back and having a good conversation about watches, about experiences, and what they can kind of do and bring with you. So, my goal is basically just to sit down and have a nice fireside chat. I'm from the Midwest, and that's pretty much where all the important conversations happen is around the fireplace or the fire pit. You grab your whiskey, your wine, your favorite cider, and you just sit down and chat it up. And, call that old people talk, call that just, call what you will. I think it's a great time. And honestly, I think there needs to be a lot more of it that happens out there. And that's really why I just started the channel. I thought this would be a great place for me to kick back after a crazy day and to just talk about watches, life, and what kind of happens in my workplace. Now, granted, I am not a watch dealer. Thank goodness, I don't sell watches. And I think that's probably the most important part. Is I like to be more of a consumer advocate for people that are either getting into watches, that love it, they're really in deep like I am, they're just too far in. But I think that's kind of a perspective that may be missing, is the consumer side. And a lot of that, I love the whole dealer and sales perspective. But the reality is that that's not where everybody needs to come from, and not necessarily the best place to always get your information when there is a blatant bias. Now, granted, I'm completely biased. I have my own biases. I love certain things that people will not. There, I have very subjective taste, and we all have subjective taste. But at least if you know that I'm not trying to sell you anything, that's kind of a win. And the funniest part about this is, yes, there are affiliate links below pretty much every place you hear the show. Those are there to help out the channel. Click on them, buy something. If you do, it helps us out a little bit. That's fantastic. And like, subscribe. That helps even more. Just sharing the word about the channel if you like it. And I guess I wasn't quite sure, how do you start off your first show, and what sort of crazy topics are out there that you really want to make an impact. And I thought, instead of just trying to make an impact, I would just talk about kind of what happened during the week, as far as experiences go, things that are going down, conversations that I've had with friends, work colleagues, and other partnerships. And I think one of the most important things that happened this week, I had no intention of talking about this on the show, was just, I guess, the whole concept of try before you buy when it comes to the entire watch game. Now, I love researching watches to death. Whatever I'm going to be going after next, kind of your grail watch or just something that you're really interested in, I love seeing lots of reviews, watching tons of videos, and I can, for the most part, I would say, make up my entire just view on a watch without ever getting hands on it and seeing it until I, buy it and it shows up at my doorstep or go pick it up at an AD. that is how I believe most of us buy in 2022. It is we watch tons of reviews, we read everything we can about it, we try to understand as much as we can, as long and for some of us that's an impulse buy that you just did right then and there. And for others that's a week or a month long process, and or maybe even months or years on that process. And some people still have never laid eyes on the watch that they're desiring. And I will just say that it works out most of the time. I mean, let's face it, we all bought watches online, and for the most part, it works out great. You know what? I guess I should go into a wristwatch check for today. So today I am wearing the Omega, or Omega, depending on how you want to say it, Seamaster Professional, and the white dial, the Panda look. This is by far probably my flashiest, and I just absolutely love this watch. That's my daily driver, weekend driver. It's all around. As long as it's nothing too fancy. I have it on the rubber strap, and it just suits me perfectly. My absolute probably favorite just everyday wear right now. So anyway, that's what I've got on. But what was I saying? Let's just get back to the topic here. Point at hand was try before you buy, and I'll just take my own. I didn't take my advice on one of these, and luckily it worked out for me. But let's just go into this. Was before this was when I was actually looking at the Omega Seamaster Panda, and the comparison watch to it for kind of an everyday driver that I don't feel too bad about beating up, but definitely don't want to beat up too much, was going to be the Tudor Pelagos or Pelagos. I fell in love with the Pelagos, and I'll be quite honest, I bought them both at the same time. And I thought I really only need one of these. I found a deal for the Pelagos that was just, brand new, almost too good to be true, but it was a gray market win for a little bit under retail, and I know right now I could flip it for over retail, which would have just made seller fees would have evened out. So basically, if I didn't like the Pelagos, I could flip it, and the same thing with the Omega at the same time. I would have no issue flipping it and breaking even, which is wonderful. That's a great thing about those watches. But the thing that I didn't do was I had never seen the Tudor Pelagos at the time. I didn't know what it looked like. I watched every review possible. I knew this was the watch for me. It seemed to fit to a T. The titanium bracelet, the titanium all around the size of it. That's just a chunky boy that fits perfectly as far as size wise goes. And I loved the matte. The matte look of that watch just absolutely spoke to me as far as being like, this is me. This is the non flashy. I can totally wear this at work, know it's going to be really high end, classy, but understated, and I'm not going to like freak people out by, wearing a Rolex sub. It's not that flashy like that, even though, in a lot of cases it's what I need to be. I'm just not that flashy. I usually roll around with my Mega Speedmaster, pretty chill, pretty easy going, nothing super fancy, and I'm probably the middle of the line watch guy where I work. So that's kind of that in a nutshell. But anyway, I ordered it anyway. I ordered it. I had it on ready to go, and luckily this worked out in my favor. That I just got annoyed with the company. It was supposed to ship, within 3 days. It was in stock. 3 days go by. Oh, it's not in stock. We're gonna back order it. Don't worry, it's in the factory. It's gonna be here in another 3 days. Waited like 3 or 4 or 5 days, business days, and got back with them at the end of the next week. So it's almost like a 2 week process. I'm just like, guys, I am not interested in you tying up my money, which is just cancel this order. So canceled it. Felt good about it. Felt absolutely fine. And then I went into a local shop. They had a used Pelagos there that I was looking at, and I was just absolutely shocked how much I did not like that watch. It just blew my mind that in every way, shape, or form, it was exactly what I thought it would be. And then somehow you get in person, and it is just not the watch for you. To the point where I just was so happy that I had canceled that order. I walked out of that place thinking, goodness, what would I have done? I would have flipped it. I would have been literally wasted probably a month and just the cash right there that was tied up for no reason. So that is my own experience with holy cow. You really do need to, if you can at all, try and get hands on with the watch before you buy it. I mean, it really is a big difference in person, and that's why review channels will go through and say there's no way you can really review it without having it in your hands. Like there's tangible differences that from what you can be shown and what you can actually see. And the same thing goes with it's not just that. No, I love Tudors. I think Tudors are great. They are what they are. They're the little baby brand of Rolex, which is wonderful, and they do what they do. But we'll just hit Rolex. One of the biggest disappointments for me, as far as like getting hands on with a watch that's like your dream watch. I'm a Panda fiend. Like I love that white dial with a black back with a black bezel. That is just a beautiful thing, or some sort of silver highlight. Just the white dials. I'll admit, I'm just a sucker for them right now. Will that change in the future? Maybe. I'm sure I'll always love them, but right now, just absolutely die hard. And Rolex's Explorer 2 with that Panda dial was by far my most coveted watch for a very, very long time. I thought it was going to be the watch for me when I'm going to drop, probably in the prices of 2022 right now. They're running between like 10 to 14K. And if you're gonna do that, to me that's a chunk of change, and that's gonna be the one watch that you baby a bit, even though it's an Explorer too. Like it's the watch you're supposed to kind of beat up a little bit. That's sort of my thing. Like I love the more outdoorsy, sporty watches. I love being able to take the things that are really nice and use them. Like I'm not a let's just sit back and look at it sort of person. So I'm gonna take it on a trail. I'm gonna take it hiking. I'm gonna take it outside. Gonna be fishing. I mean, that's part of the watches that I enjoy. Is they need to be sort of sporty for the most part. One, because work has become a sport place. There's no need for dress in the world of 2022. Like anybody shows up with a suit and an AP or something, like I really realize that they're either completely new or they have no idea what they're doing. Like now, the world has changed. Whereas I I show up in shorts, flip flops, and a nice watch, and I'm good. And a regular T-shirt. If I put a flannel on, we're talking super high class for the day. And if I talk with any other executive or CEO that's not doing that, then something's probably wrong, unless they're literally in a full on corporate situation. It's just the world's changed. 2022 is a beautiful place. Like I expect to talk to someone who's sitting on their lazy boy, with their Rolex on. Like that's a totally different world than what it used to be, but that's what it is today. So that's just kind of like anyway. I don't know how I got off on that tangent. So we're going here. We'll keep rolling with it. But anyway, the biggest disappointment to me was the Rolex Explorer 2 when I got hands on with it, and it just changes. One, the problem was I had my Omega Seamaster Panda on, and that's kind of sad. It just absolutely was way more vivid and more special than that Rolex was ever going to be, and that's kind of unfortunate. Now, granted, if I pick one up, which I probably will in the future, it's something I still like. It's just not as striking as the Seamaster. Like the zirconium dial they used, it's just so incredibly vivid in comparison to Rolex's dial on there. And uh, with experience, with taking that watch and doing some crazy things, maybe taking it out, to the west, out in Colorado or something like that, I can make some great memories, and really love that watch. But I just know that it right now, as far as looks goes, it will never beat the Omega Seamaster as far as just actual looks. Which totally subjective. We're talking about my absolute subjective likes and tastes here. If someone else tells me their favorite watch is the Rolex Explorer versus the Omega Seamaster Panda, absolutely, that's right for you, and I'm not going to judge you with it. You like what you like. I like what I like. But the point is maybe you didn't know that until you actually saw both of them side by side. And if you have that capability, luckily, I live in a major American city. Like I have ADs for just about I pretty everybody. Like I have no problems going around to either an AD or a boutique and finding pretty much anything I want. Why did I not go to the Tudor AD and do that before? I don't know. that was just a ridiculous mistake, and I learned from it. It could have been a costly one. What if I wasn't able to flip that for a profit or break even on it, and got stuck with a watch that I really hated? Well, that's happened. Welcome to the watch world. That's what I'm trying to save you from. Don't do it. Don't go there. Just try and get hands on if you can. Or if you know you can't, try to make sure you're getting yourself into a deal that you can either return it or you have the ability to flip it and not lose money. And then be wise with that. Maybe if you're gonna put something on like a credit card, make sure that you're taking an interest into account if you have it on there for a month or two before you're able to flip it. And depending on what site you're on, if you're doing on a group, great, you can actually skip the fees and taxes and madness. But if you're doing that on eBay or something, there's 13% plus shipping. So keep that in mind as you're kind of rolling through that thought process, because if you aren't really happy with your purchase and you've gone ahead and pulled that trigger, then you have to deal with the consequences of it, and sometimes that can be pretty pricey. So I really am surprised at the differences of what I like online versus what I like in person. They are they're vastly different, and that just goes for almost every brand. And I'm just saying this because I know a lot of people, and I've talked with tons of people about this. They do not go and see stuff in person before they buy it. It just is how it is, and I understand it because I'm there half the time. But I also understand that a lot of my taste changed as soon as I actually got hands on or saw them all in person or was able to compare multiple brands at the same time. If you have a really good jewelry store, that has Omega, that has Rolex, Tudor, all kind of like right around there, or at least you have one that's close. There's usually competition really really close to each other, at least in my city. It's worth getting into and checking out if you can. It really is a cool experience too. I have not found the snobbery on any place except for Rolex as far as going into most places. Most ADs are honestly fantastic, and my test is I'll roll in looking like a hillbilly essentially, but I'll have a nice watch on. If you have doesn't even matter if you have a nice watch. That's the real test. Go in there looking like a true hillbilly, just with a good knowledge base, and see how they treat you. And I think that's very important as well. So anyway, man, massive tangent here, but that's just basically the try before you buy. That came up, and I just couldn't believe that like I am the biggest failure of that of all time, and was so close to getting stuck with a watch I absolutely would not have liked, and it still hurts me today because every time I still go and watch a review on the Tudor Pelagos or Pelagos, I love it. I really love it. It seems like it's really really good, and then all of a sudden I go right back to that memory of disappointment, disappointment in person. Just surprises me every single time. And then you think back to the Rolex 2 and just like the Explorer 2. Disappointment. I still love it. Now, granted, it's still a gorgeous watch. It wasn't the same disappointment of like Tudor Pelagos versus the Rolex Explorer 2. I still thought it was really cool. It was just comparing it. I was just looking down at my wrist at my Omega, just looking at the Rolex right next to it. I'm just like, man, I'm still in love with the Panda a little bit more. And it was that's a great thing. That's a great experience to have. It's not a negative experience whatsoever. It's positive. It's letting you know that you either made the right choice, to make the right choice, or you have something to look forward to in the future to try to find something else. It's just a really, really cool thing to do, cool thing to know, and it also is fun to get out and branch out and see other dealers and stuff that are out there, other ADs, and it's a cool time. So I know it's weird walking into a jewelry store, and don't fret, you don't have to look great. I seriously, go in there looking like a hillbilly and see what happens, and then if you really are ever gonna buy from that place again. But at least you have a good time, and you get a water and a Coke from somebody while you're in there. So anyway, that's that was the thoughts that hit me this week. I think the next podcast is going to be pretty fun. I've got I just wanted to chat about, I want to say, the mindset of people in watches, and maybe their first watch, or if they're interested in they're a business professional looking for something for the first time. The mindset between helping that person and hurting that person when it comes to watches is it can be pretty crazy. It can be pretty intense what you can do, and I'm gonna call it, as I've talked to tons of new business professionals. Um, it's the $100 mindset. And you know what? Maybe I'll just break into it a little bit here. We'll go a little longer today. This will be fun. So this is something that happens all the time. Is when I'm talking with a new business professional, they're coming into the office. I always like to just pull people over and play a game of pool, chat it up, see how things are going, and inevitably I'll end up chatting about. I'll bring up watches every now and then just to see what happens. If they're wearing one, if they're not. Usually everybody in our office is going to be wearing one. But if they're not, then that's something a little more interesting to talk about. But it's just I always want to know where they started, what they were thinking, because I remember back in my first experience, everybody has their first like $5 Casio when they're 5, and most people stop wearing watches when they're like 10, which is me in a nutshell. And it always comes back to, well, what's your first watch? And in reality, it's usually around high school or college that they'll bring in a story, and for the most part, fairly recently, it's always going to be someone who picks up either an Invicta or like a Fossil watch. And it's inevitable. They've done such a good job at marketing those two brands that they pick almost everybody up, or some sort of someone's sort of a little more fancy in the dress. They might have like a Gucci watch or something like that, and they think that's the top notch and most special thing in the world, which is great. I mean, I'm never going to diss somebody on their personal selection of a watch. First thing, I'm going to congratulate you. Great, you have a watch. It most likely looks good. People don't buy stuff that looks bad. And I always go back to, my first watch that got me into it. I bought a Fossil watch because I thought it looked amazing, and I found a steal of a deal back then on eBay. I needed it for a job interview. I was like, I haven't had a watch forever. It's welcome to undergrad. It just doesn't really matter that much. But I needed something that looked good, and I found a Fossil on eBay for like $30. And you know what? I wore that thing to death. Matter of fact, I bought another Fossil watch so I could steal the strap off of it. That's how little I do about watches, but the strap on the watch cost as much as the straps did online. I was like, why not just have another watch with a different strap? So that's that nutshell. And that's how I got into watches. And somebody kind of early on in the professional world, started talking about watches with me, and they're like, "Oh, you got a Fossil? Great! They actually have decent quartz movements." And I didn't know what a quartz movement was, versus a mechanical one at that point in time. But all I knew is I love the look of this watch. It worked for me just fine, and hey, and it got compliments to start off with. What a win! What a nice guy. And that's kind of what I always wanted to be. Is I'm not going to diss somebody on their first watch choice. So when I'm talking to somebody new, and they picked up a Fossil or an Invicta, great choice. They look amazing, and you know what? They run pretty well too. And it always kind of comes down to price at some point. And generally, if someone's not a watch person, which granted that's 99% of people, they always kind of have this max budget in mind of $100. And take it's 2022, so you're listening to this in a couple of years. I'm sure that's probably gonna be $300 in America, but $100 is basically the baseline that everybody kind of thinks of that first watch as. And anything above that, especially if you're starting off as an early professional, is really a luxury purchase. And for a lot of people, the $50 was a luxury purchase, that they just needed something that for them that was luxury. That's gonna be a really nice watch. And I think that's one of the most positive things about Fossil and Invicta is they have so many crazy styles that look pretty good, or they'll at least fit somebody's individual style, and they'll do the trick. They actually work. And I love that. What I want to discourage people from is seeing that for the first time and then being disappointed by it. Like saying, oh, wow, you got a Fossil? Why didn't you at least buy a Timex or a Casio, or spend your $50 to $100 doing something better? And I've always wanted to stay away from that mindset. I think your watch choice is very individual. It's very personal. And money is something I never want to ever press somebody to buy something more expensive than they're really comfortable with. Because most people are a one watch and done. They buy something that works, and then they'll just go till it dies, essentially. And if they do get into the hobby a little more, great. Or if they have a bigger budget, that's awesome. But I always think back to some people can't understand, like, and $100 in the watch world is really budget beyond budget down there. And that's because the watch world is insane. It is absolutely insane how far you can go. But I remember myself back, and I think it was high school, and I remember working with a guy who's really excited about a G-Shock. And you know, I knew what it was. I knew it was a tough watch back then. And like he was gonna spend $125 on it. And I remember thinking that is an insane amount of money. Granted, my what I spent my money on was basically just going and vacationing. So to me, I was like, dude, that's got me halfway to Colorado or doing some rafting, bro. And you're gonna spend that on a watch that you're just gonna like wear on your wrist. And I didn't get it. I absolutely didn't get it. This he was a biker. He loved biking. He wanted something tough, and he fell off on and did all those alarms and tracking. And honestly, great on this guy. Super cool. But I still remember to this day thinking, I do not understand this purchase. What a waste of money. And I just kind of put that out of my mind for the longest time. Now I'm thinking, man, this guy was so far ahead. Right on. Getting a G-Shock, you know, God tier watch. Fantastic, bro. I, here I was just dissing him. I still almost feel bad about that. I wish I could travel back in time and be like, man, what a great purchase. Great job. Love it. You saved up. Killer. And I still take that mindset into today as a lot of people will not understand spending more money than $100 on a watch ever. So if they ask for advice and you start giving some great advice about maybe a Hamilton would be a great start, a nice Swiss watch, or a Tissot, a low end Swiss watch, and you can go for like $200 or $300 and get something really cool that's Swiss, has a Swiss movement, really really nice. That may absolutely just blow somebody's mind that anybody would ever imagine spending $300 on a watch. So you kind of have to keep that in mind, and you don't want to scare people away, and have all this history and craziness that goes behind why you actually like a brand, and then they find out that was $3,000. You spent $3,000 on a watch, like those are the things you kind of want to avoid if you can, because that will completely turn somebody off to the entire hobby, and then maybe they're afraid to buy a watch or afraid to even wear one around you at that point. That's the scary part that I always just try to lead people away from, is just going maybe too deep, too into it, and scaring people away by just outpricing people. So meet people right where they are, find out what they like and taste. If they ask for your advice, great. I think give the coolest brands you can for their price range. I mean, I still think Timex is killer. I think Seikos are awesome. Yeah, there's really amazing stuff on the lower end. Now, to me, if you're going to buy a lower end watch, in my mind, it's a G-Shock. But the G-Shocks are amazing. They're one of the coolest watches out there, and they just don't cost that much, which is so cool. But granted, someone says I have $100 to spend. In my mind, great, cool, buy a wicked looking G-Shock, and they're thinking this has to get me through all my interviews. This has to get me through all my business meetings. This has to get me through weddings. Obviously $100 on a G-Shock is probably going to be a bad choice. Granted, you'll find me wearing one in some of the biggest meetings out there, and you'll find some other executives doing the same thing too, because you can, and it doesn't really matter. And that's what I love about watches is there is a persona. They do bring such a cool thing to the table, but in some cases you can just completely blow off what people think matters. And wear a G-Shock to some of the biggest meetings out there or more. Like I absolutely love doing that. I think taking people by surprise is fun, but then again, there's a time and place for it. And if this is your first interview for a young professional, maybe that's not the time and place. So I don't know. That's just the $100 mindset. Don't be surprised when it's out there. Don't discourage people from it. Encourage people. I mean, if someone's got $50, man, they can go and buy some pretty cool stuff. Timex has some awesome watches that are down there. Casio has some awesome watches that are in that price range, and I think it's a super positive place to be. I just think if I just only imagine if that someone was talking to me and they got really afraid about their $50 watch, so after I dissed it for them, that would just be a really bad experience, and I think it would really harm people in a wrong way. So don't be too snobbery about it. Don't be too pricey about it. I am all for people buying a fashion watch if that gets them into watches because it looks good and it fits their price range. Like I'll try to lead people to a good brand instead, so they have a good movement in there, and even a good knockoff brand like Pagani or something like that. Those watches are way out of their league price wise. They you buy them for 80 to $100 on sale at Alibaba, and goodness, they're worth $300 $400 compared to like a Seiko that they're literally copying in every way, shape, and form. So oh, pardon. So there's a lot out there. There's a lot of information, and if that's the advice you want to give to somebody, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I really love this Omega Seamaster." And I'm like, "There's a Pagani that looks just like it. That's made like a Seiko, just priced for 3 times less than a Seiko." And if somebody takes that advice and goes for it, I'm gonna high five that person all day long if they love the look of it because they got a really good bargain. They got a good deal, and it doesn't have the brand name behind it, doesn't have the build quality behind it, but I bet that watch will last 5 years, no problem. It's running on a Seiko. I mean, it's not gonna, if it goes, it dies 5 years from now, all right, go get another one. And if that's still their budget, great, that's fine. Buy another $100 watch. You don't have to move up into the world and be a big fan of it, like a huge. You don't have to make it a hobby, but you certainly can. There's just some amazing stuff out there. So, anyway, wow, what a rant. I hope I haven't been doing this for too long. I just, sitting back, talking about watches. I'm missing the whiskey. I might have to bring some of that next time. But yeah, anyway, if you like the show, I think, join us on the next one. Like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and we'll talk watches next week. All right, catch you next week.